list of things you're trying to achieve during the practice sessions at Bathurst is longer than anywhere we go.
Teams will be constantly chasing the car and the track.
If you've got a car that's hard to drive, you've got the tiger by the tail all day. And you can't drive all day at Bathurst without making a mistake.
Shane Van Gisbergen runs wide, fires, and that's big damage on the Red Bull car.
So what you're trying to do is make the car easy to drive, but make it fast.
He's heaving, isn't he?
It's temperatures, it's fuel economy, it's your driver, it's getting your co-driver comfortable, it's car setup, it's pit stops, it's brake pad changes, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
It's not only the track improving, but it's also what happens between here. So if you have the opportunity to spend a lot of time in the car, you become more at one with your motor car, and as time goes by, there's time in that.
Isn't that a gorgeous sight? Mount Panorama, Bathurst. One of the iconic motor racing tracks. From all around the world, they come to this location and marvel at just how much risk is involved, how much speed, how narrow, the undulation. And there's not a better view of it from up on board the I Can Quit chopper, and Greg Murphy is up there. Good morning to you, Murph.
Good morning, Croppo. Yes, the eye in the sky again. The I Can Quit traffic chopper. It's about to get busy out there, isn't it, mate? Looking good. Good conditions for this session. And I can tell you, we had to sack our previous pilot because his weather predictions were so poor. We've now got Nev. Nev's our #1 pilot. He's now in charge of the machine. And at the moment, looking really clear, guys. Actually, you talked about before that easterly, Crompo, and there is some cells. You can definitely see some rain over in the hills to the east, back towards the Blue Mountains. So I don't think that's going to inflict on anything today, or this morning at least. We're going for a great session, I reckon.
I think you're right about that. It's only 9 degrees on the ground. It'll be cooler up where you are at the moment, and an easterly, but we do have the interesting prospect of some showers forecast just after lunch, and they may persist through the afternoon, Greg.
Yeah, listen, it's going to be pretty fickle again, wasn't it? I mean, we didn't think it was probably going to get as much moisture as we did yesterday afternoon, but at the moment, mate, I'm sitting here, as you can see, at the bottom of this amazing Cineflex camera, $750,000 worth of camera, looking at Mount Panorama, Bathurst, watching the cars go over Skyline. This point of view, this perspective, my goodness gracious me, everyone should get a chance to see this. It's just unbelievable what we're able to produce with all these cameras, this one especially here on the chopper. What an amazing job, an amazing perspective as we watch them all. There's Lee Holdsworth going down through the S's there, just getting some tyre tip in the car. The boys are on for it. All that top 10 warm-up for the top 10 is going to be awesome at the end of the session, guys. I can't wait to watch some of these cars putting everything into it in the last few minutes of the session on a new set of tyres with a bit of luck.
$750,000, Murph. That's Murphy money. We're talking big numbers there. 4-time Bathurst winner Greg Murphy, 1996 winner, 1999, 2003, 2004. He'll keep an eye on proceedings from above. Mark Scaife has joined me back into the commentary box. Scattered cloud, low temperatures, not a lot of direct sunlight on the racetrack, and a very important 30-minute session now to get a read on the racetrack conditions. Have a bit of a stab at any other final tweaks, and then there'll be another co-driver session to come later on today, Mark, and for some about thinking for tomorrow's race, and for others starting to migrate their thoughts to how you get sorted for a top 10 shootout. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Neil. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because I've never seen that easterly so strong. It's going to be an interesting braking area into turn one. Little bit of work. These guys have had dramas, gremlins for the last day and a half, haven't they?
Well, you picked up yesterday in the co-driver session where we had Michael Caruso at the helm. We thought it was fuel, and then we had a report that it was electrical, and then that turned out to be an electrical drama as we got some more background information. And then later in the day, Cam Waters, who scrambled into the Armour All top 10 for the shootout today, they had a crank trigger sensor problem with that thing, which kept him out of play until the very end of it. Now, how he managed to get in the top 10 is a modern miracle. Seeing it in the garage there's a worry. Now, full pit rehearsal here. This is the number 55 car, the Supercheap Auto race car, being shared by Chaz Mostert, who was second quickest yesterday, together with James Moffat, who headed one of the co-driver sessions. And we're starting to see people not only rehearse pit stops, but turning their thoughts to how they manage this brake change, which you must change the brake rotor, the front brake rotor on the car, a minimum of once during the race tomorrow.
Go around the outside of you. After that, all clear. Just let me know when you've got a brake pedal, please.
Adam DeBoro, the engineer for Chaz Mostert, just making sure that they're confirmed with line pressure in the brakes. Now, Mark Larkin, Greg Murphy, myself, watched yesterday down at Nissan as they do their change. It's really fascinating how they've come up with the system. They used it last year as well. You can see that they've got the entire rotor assembly with a caliper on it, pressurised, and they take 2 of the caliper bolts out from the upright, drag the brake off, and put the new system on. It's a dry brake coupling on the hydronic line. Now, I watched them do the wheel off, brake change, entire brake system change, and wheel back on in 18.7 seconds yesterday.
Wow. That's very, very good. Everyone's talking 20 is their best, so that's great.
Yeah, that was a real number, as real as my thumb gets on my iPhone, but it was very impressive. So, 25 minutes to run in this session, and Fabian Coulthard is the fastest at the moment, 2 minutes 7.02 from Alex Premer. Craig Lowndes has recorded a time, and Garth Tander.
So the rain overnight will change the character of this place markedly. Everybody in pit lane's talking about the conditions being so different. That wind direction we've already covered off. Remember, this is the last chance before the top 10 shootout that the lead drivers will get to drive the car, because the next session is a co-driver session only, in practice 7. So at the end of this session, we will definitely see some rehearsals. So co-drivers in the car, or a couple of them, that's Lowndes, but then you'll see the #1 driver, the primary drivers in at the end of this one. Andrew?
Very good morning, gentlemen. Yesterday we saw some issues with the Monster Energy car. We well documented it was a crank sensor problem. Same area of the car is causing concern this morning, but this time it's a sticking throttle for Cameron Waters, so they've had to take the airbox off and just release that linkage a little bit before sending that car out. So a couple of little engine issues here, which hopefully will not plague the rest of their weekend.
That is the last thing that you need at this place. You know, we've already seen a car with a steering rack stop in it at the end of Mountain Straight for Jake Kostecki, and then a sticking throttle. They're the sort of things that are absolutely at the bottom of the list of anything that you want to have occur here. I'm interested in that topic that you raised a few moments ago, Mark, about what the track surface is like now after it's had a wash. There was quite a bit of rain here yesterday as they're bringing car 888 in. And a change in the rhythm of the race meeting here from the recent past as well. This used to be a 1-hour session, but it's been broken because what was typically happening was the primary driver was hogging the blanket, and then the co-drivers weren't getting much time, so it's been split. This is a groovy angle, isn't it, looking over the right-hand side? It gives you a bit of an idea of hands and footwork here. This is into the final corner down at Murray's.
Nice technique on his heel and toe there. So just watch this. So you'll see this at Hell Corner. Watch the brake pedal, watch his right foot. Nice. Often you see the drivers move their foot too much and it decreases the pedal pressure as you do it, but his action is, from a technique perspective, very efficient, and it's able to maintain as much brake pressure as possible whilst being able to blip the engine on the down change. See? Does a nice job, doesn't it?
Yeah, really nice. Just swift. Just a little tickle of the throttle, and the reason for it is just to elevate the rev range in the car so it matches the speed of the engine for the incoming gear, so that you don't effectively light up the rear tyres under brakes, destabilise the rear of the car.
Steve Fiore, isn't he?
Yeah,
I am right.
Yeah. This is my favourite bit of racetrack over the top of the hill through Reed Park on the run towards McPhillamy. Metal grate on the right, big load on the steering and tyres through here. All fourth gear, north of 200 kilometres an hour. It's a patient throttle through the middle of McPhillamy and then building back up to about 210 kilometres an hour on used tyres through there. Pushing into a headwind over the top of the hill there today. Dipper, second to third gear. Right here is where Chaz Mostert came unstuck in qualifying several years ago.
He couldn't hold it against the right fence because he was too fast. So he had to just aim it at the corner.
What happens when you get up there at Forest Elbow is if you dive in there too quick, it's made Mark laugh, you bat for safety. So the minute you realise that you're a couple of Ks too hot into there, the only thing you can do is point it towards the apex and pray. And that's what Dean did there. 6th gear, fastest corner in Australia, just under 300 kilometres an hour. And here's where the brakes come alive. So the front brake temperatures were sitting at about 400 plus degrees prior to him putting his foot on the pedal. Ended up about 820, 830 degrees when he had max brake pressure on. Then they cool out again. They drop about 400 degrees, believe it or not, and then they jump back up into the high 800s again for that second stop. It's the second stop down there that actually hurts them.
Yep.
So the teams and the engineering groups within the teams put a huge amount of emphasis on trying to manage and retain temperature to remove the peaks and troughs and match the front to the rear as best they can. Now they've got kind of a 6 out. It is an awesome shot. I really like that. So Cam's in the car at the moment. Thankfully, it's running again. Hopefully, that sticking throttle, I'll get it out in English, has been resolved. Will Davison, meantime, while we were looking over the shoulder of Dean Fiore, he's done a 2-minute 4.7 to be the fastest so far. He's got a half-second margin over Garth Tander.
And your point about Cam from yesterday, I reckon he was man of the match to get into the top 10.
That would have all been muscle memory and adrenaline, probably a bit of anger in there as well, because hard to emphasise just how difficult those conditions are. You don't get the giant rivers here. You do get them at this racetrack, but what you get when it's treacherous is a mirror-like sheen on the surface. It's got a pile of grip in the dry, and this tyre is really well matched. This Dunlop tyre is very well matched to the surface, but when it's wet, the wet isn't soft enough to really latch into the road here, and the film of water sits up on top of it, and you literally skate with 1.5 tons under your backside anywhere from 200 to 300 kilometres an hour for 2/3 of a lap and hope.
Exactly. And the reason that the grip, so have a look at the surface there alongside Tim Slade's car. The surface of the road, we might try to just get a really good shot of that tar, but the tar is really close-knit bitumen. The aggregate within it is very tight. So you can look at the bitumen there and see how tight the surface is. So in the dry, that's a great shot. Well done, guys. That is beautiful conformity for the tyre. As soon as you put water on top of it, the water has nowhere to go. So it sits up on top, and that's what creates the really slippery surface or glass-like surface that you spoke of.
When you see the mirror shine here, it's always a great opportunity to leap out of the car and give the car to your co-driver.
Exactly.
Up at the Red Bull Holden Racing team with new old pairings in car 888.
New old.
New old. So Whincup and Lowndes get the band back together for the first time since 2009. And a brand new pairing for Van Gisbergen and Tander, and kind of the 97s now in. Brake change here. Remember,
stay off the brake pedal for us, please.
Extraordinary temperatures in those front brakes.
Stay off the brake pedal, mate.
Car controller makes sure that nobody that sits in the driver's seat bumps one of those brake pedals, otherwise that's catastrophe.
On the time, please. Pump the brake pedal. We've got a clear pit lane. Behind yellow and black, behind yellow and black. Clear to go.
And then he'll continue to make sure that that pedal pressure is up. More than one driver's been caught at the end of Mountain straight after a brake pad change, so you can see him cycling the brake pedal again. So they confirm it on the radio. They want to, even if you don't confirm it by pushing the press to talk button, even a thumbs up will do that, yes, I've got comms. You see them bringing up that line pressure again in the brake, and then they'll do it all the way up Mountain Straight to make sure that by the time you get here, that it is definitely pressure.
Ooh, that was going to be tight.
It was. It looked a bit spooky. And this is car number 7, Bryce Fullwood, here at the moment in car 7, position number 19. The plus
Got away with it.
Yeah, they untangled themselves.
Ooh, and again, so he's under siege there. Chris Pither was the one that fired down the inside of him. Richard Muscat is the one that's now trying to fire up the inside. He did. Gee, both those are high-risk manoeuvres on a bit of a non-event practice session. Be very careful. Only a 30-minute session. Last systems checks effectively before the top 10 shootout for the lead drivers. As Neil said, the next session is for co-drivers only.
This one you can mix and match as you require. So quick summary of where we're at. Here's the replay. Actually, I'll come back to the point I was going to make. So Van Gisbergen's just left the pit lane, checking pressure in the line. And when he's turned in the end of the straight, he's got car number 33 just lurking in his mirror. And this is a fellow Kiwi, Chris Pither. Sneaks up the inside and ultimately gets it done. We, for a moment there, went whoop, but it was all okay. Summary of the week so far. So practice 1, Corley Jones into the wall at the cutting and record-breaking speed for Jamie Whincup. For those of you that were working and unable to see our coverage earlier in the week, practice 2 Thursday. Luke Youlden, former winner of the race with David Reynolds. Big contact with the wall at Reed Park, a lot of damage and a monstrous mission overnight to rebuild the car. Jake Kostecki also at Reed Park, one of the wildcard entries hitting the concrete up there. Ash Walsh went off down at Murray's. Jack Smith had a little problem at turn 2, but James Moffat was the fastest co-driver. Practice 3, nuclear speed. Trying to think of a new description for how fast they're going. So for McLaughlin, it was a 2-minute 3.7. So that was a real eyebrow raiser. That was fast. And then practice 4, the co-driver session, had that little lock-stop problem that we talked about before. This is what's on the back of the board for the car controller to remind the drivers using the script of the things that matter when you're going through the pit lane process. So Kostecki had trouble at turn 2. Thomas Randall found the elbow wall. Michael Caruso had that electrical problem with the monster car, and Will Brown was the fastest co-driver. Alex Rossi in practice 5 went off at turn 1. Simona went off at turn 1. Richie Stanaway and Jamie Whincup tangled at the top of the hill in the S's. Well, they didn't actually touch, but it ended up with big damage for both those cars. And McLaughlin fastest ever lap. Reversing again at Supercheap. And then we went to a wet qualifying session after what had been a dry run. 40 minutes, another electrical problem for Waters, who made it into the top 10, and then McLaughlin came out as the fastest. So that's a précis of what's happened so far this week. As always, there's 101 stories in every direction. Never enough time to be able to tell. So you think you'd be here for a month and never get through all of the different things that happen to everybody, but plenty to talk about. Let's get back to the lane.
Hey, Neil, tell me about it now. Now, a lot of chat about that Cam Waters drama with his electrical sensor in his Mustang and his throttle. So one of the dramas they've got, this is a Rick Kelly Nissan, but all of that is down underneath this airbox, right? And it's a fair bit of work to get in and around that. So if we pluck out a 650 horsepower supercar engine, come down here, the drama he's been having is this sensor here. Obviously, this pulley, this chopper wheel, is connected to the front of the crankshaft, and the information that comes from each of those little spikes to that little black sensor right there is critical. Now, when you look where that is, with any dirt, pebbles, junk that comes up in there, that's quite sensitive to abuse, and that happens. The other thing we just heard is a stuck throttle. Now, one of the big problems with our engine, 650 horsepower, if you only get a little bit of throttle that's sticking, look down in here. Here's our injectors. I don't know if you can see these that fire the fuel, the little hole just there. And when I grab my lever at the back here, there he is, and I crack those open, you'll see inside there, just watch carefully, you'll see the butterfly opening and closing, right? Now, if that is just a little bit stuck, say even just that much, just a fraction, that's like maybe 100, 150, maybe 200 horsepower. You've only got to crack the throttle to have a lot of power. From a driving point of view, it's a frightening thing to have happen.
Absolutely the last thing that you want to have happen at this location. So car number 6 on screen here. Michael Caruso at the helm. He's already had a couple of outings this year driving for Gary Rogers Motorsport. He's been running in the co-driver sessions also in the Monster Energy car, so he's cranked up a few miles. Unbelievable view from above. Once again, let's return back into the squirrel with Greg Murphy.
Yeah, thanks, Probo. We'll follow Mike Caruso around this track for a little bit. The communication, just got to mention it, between Nev, the pilot, and Adam at the back, the cam operator, is amazing. It's not an easy job. The coordination of getting this right and putting the chopper in the right place and giving Adam the right amount of range to operate this amazing Cineflex camera and make sure these shots are as pinpoint as they are. And now we're just coming over the top. We're at Reed Park, and Nev's going to put the nose down a little bit here in a sec and dive the squirrel down as they go through McPhillamy. The speed, watching the cars through here, through McPhillamy to Skyline, as we dive down, this shot, oh my goodness, it's got to be the best thing you can be doing in a helicopter right now, is following these cars across here. I know you guys are seeing it through the front of the camera there, and how awesome it is. For me, it is very, very special. I love being in a helicopter. Now we're going to turn, drop the nose here, and chase Mike and these guys down Conrod Straight. So we're dipping the nose, accelerating very, very quickly. The squirrel today, we can probably top it out at about 270, 280 k's an hour as we chase them. They're pulling away, pulling away. We're starting to gather some speed. Adam's got a great shot of the back of the two cars, the Shell car ahead going through the chase. They turn through there. To be honest, though, it still looks very, very flat. It doesn't give us the perspective of how much undulation there is in this racetrack. But we are just, I'm loving it up here, boys. Absolutely loving it. I'm going to try and talk someone into letting me do this tomorrow as well.
And the day after.
Fantastic.
And the day after that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Four-time Bathurst winner up in the I Can Quit chopper. Looking overhead this 6.2 kilometre racetrack where there's an easterly wind continuing to blow at the moment. The temperature's still in single digits. It's still very, very cold. And some of these slow-mo images that we've seen over the years of the helicopter tracking the cars, particularly over the top of the mountains, fantastic. So Greg's sitting up there making a pest of himself at the moment, wanting to touch everything. Pilot keeps slapping his hands away. So it's a 598-point margin in our championship, and let's not forget that this is a round of the championship this weekend. So Scott McLaughlin has got a handy cushion, but one of the things that Mark and I talk about when we come back here year on year is the risk reward at this location. Big profit to be made with a 300-point win available, but also big losses if you get it wrong here. So this is a weekend where you can really kick your championship into gear, or you can really harm it. Only one opportunity, where typically when we race supercars in the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, there are multiple races in weekends. So have a bad Saturday, recover on Sunday. The arrival and departure shot at the bottom of Conrod is amazing, isn't it? So car number 14 for Freightliner Racing is on screen here at the moment. Nice job yesterday for these guys. Brad Jones racing entry. Tim Slade's driving at the moment. Tim's been in a little bit of a slump in the recent past, just trying to find comfort in the sweet spot with the setup of this car. They did change cars during the season, and even at the most recent test day at Winton, he swapped cars with Nick Percat. So he's sitting 11th at the moment.
Good job for them to be 5th and 6th in that top 10 shootout later this afternoon. 6 different teams have been able to get into the top 10, and for Brad Jones to put 2 of his lead drivers in there was a very good job in treacherous, wild conditions. I was just talking to a lot of the drivers this morning. They just kept on laughing about just how wild it was. Not being able to get tyre temperature, how sideways it was, all of the things that were going on in terms of the painted lines and the undulations. We talk about this as a public road, but it's a pretty wild public road given the speed.
A very wild public road, which opened as a racetrack back in 1938.
It's a tourist drive.
It was a tourist drive, scenic road. And the then mayor opened it, and it was a pretty shrewd move because there was always an eye on it being a racetrack, but it was kind of cloaked under the guise of, oh, we'll make a nice scenic road next to our beautiful little town. This town, this area, was the beneficiary of the gold rush back in the 1800s. There's still a gold rush here every October, where everybody tries to make points and claim the prize for the biggest win of the championship year. And we've seen some extraordinary motor racing over the years on 2, 3 and 4 wheels, because motorcycles formerly had the Australian Grand Prix here. Sidecars used to run here. Not so much lately.
I'd love to put you on a sidecar.
I've been in the sidecar. It only ever happened once.
Yeah, I'd like to put you on a sidecar around here.
Not enough money in the world, and that's me who said that. Now, this is a really interesting entry this weekend. Wonderful to see the Napa Auto Parts Australia entry being driven by Alexander Rossi and James Hinchcliffe, American and Canadian drivers who are normally a part of the IndyCar Championship in North America. Number 27's being driven by Canadian James Hinchcliffe at the moment, who found his way into the sixes yesterday. Did an awesome job. He's been out here before and driven a supercar for Gary Rogers when internationals were driving the cars at the Gold Coast. And he's been a visitor out here during the IndyCar era. In fact, we called a race with him with IndyCars a few years ago on the Gold Coast. But he's a very likeable and very capable professional race driver, James Hinchcliffe, and has been loving the experience and just sneaking up on the task. And one of the quotes that he's been trotting out during the week, and it brought a smile to Mark's face, was trying to learn and understand and tame this task is like trying to drink from a fire hose, which is a pretty accurate description of the nightmare. Now, to get into a 6 around here in any race car is impressive, and if you wind the clock back 365 days, that'd be good enough to put you somewhere near lap record pace. It just shows you how quickly things change. So they've had a pretty good run so far. There was a little error for Alexander down at turn 1 yesterday. Just got into the gravel down there. It was no big deal. But Michael Andretti is here. He's a former IndyCar winner and champion. A lot of race victories and pole positions and 13 Grand Prix starts for McLaren in Formula One. As we take you back up to the top of the hill on the exit of Reed Park. And one of the walls is being assaulted up there. That margin just is next to nothing when you're on a fully committed lap.
Zach Brown's also here as one of the partners with Walkinshaw Andretti United. So apparently Murph took him for a drive. That'd be like the loser of the competition, wouldn't it be, you think?
I'm not going to beat up on our good friend Greg. He's up there in the chopper. He might chase us. He might go to war on us. Zach probably picked a good weekend not to be with the McLaren team at Suzuka with the Typhoon that they've got going this weekend. We're on board here with Fabian Coulthard in car number 12. And he's actually looking pretty strong here at the moment. His mid-sector is the best we've seen in the session and a personal best in Sector 1. So he's coming down to the final corner now. He's only got to find 3.5 tenths of a second to climb over car number 23, the Milwaukee Racing entry. So when we get to the end of this lap, we'll jump back upstairs with Greg. And what's he done?
Same time.
It's actually, he did go quicker, but not quite quick enough to knock off car number 23. It's Alex Davison, Will's brother, in the car at the moment. So let's jump back upstairs with Greg.
Yeah, boys, just want to report the 27. Did you say James Hinchcliffe was aboard that car?
Yeah.
He just hit the wall, actually, at the cutting. So came around the cutting, lost the back of the car and backed the right-hand side of it into the outside wall. Quite a sizable hit. If he hadn't hit the wall, he actually would have spun. So it straightened it back up. There'll be a bit of damage on the back of it. I think we actually caught it in the chopper. So a bit of a moment for him. Was he on cold tyres? I think he was had already done a lap. So maybe he was pushing reasonably hard, but the 27, a fairly big whack. I expect that he is coming to the lane. Yes, you've got him there.
He just got into the shingle, Murph.
No shingle there, Scavey. No, shingle is stones, mate. It's, you know, it's very specific, all right? But, yeah, there'll be some damage on the backside of that car, so a bit of a moment there for James Hinchcliffe.
Mark, you know we have a sizable audience in New Zealand, and there's a sizable contingent of very successful Kiwis in the field. Go gently. Now, the right-hand rear corner of that car doesn't look too handsome at the moment. Unusual there. We see people hitting the wall on the entry typically. It's not that often that you pick the throttle up that hard. That maybe those tyres hadn't come up to full temperature and pressure when he gassed it up. It's a second gear departure out of the turn 4 cutting. James is vastly experienced and he's got his IndyCar drive secure for next year. He's had 6 victories, 25 top 5s, 49 top 10 results. It'll be one of the biggest challenges of his career. Back to car number 78, Simona Di Silvestro, who opened her account earlier in the weekend with tremendous speed with a mid-5. She did 2 minute 5.5. Really comfortable in the car. Her 4th outing at Mount Panorama. This was the debut location for her when she first came to Australia to drive a supercar. Team Harvey Norman Nissan. And the Nissans generally have been very strong so far this weekend. Todd Kelly offered the opinion that the track surface and the grip here helps their car. They've continued their engine development over the last 12 months and they're seeing definite gains in that area when they study the data, and they just recently made a small aerodynamic change to the back of that car as well. Combination of all those things have put together some pretty decent speed. So Simona is in 25th at the moment. She's done a 7.4. And she's picked up a Porsche factory drive in Formula E for 2020. She's still working on her supercar plans or others. Craig Lowndes on the tools, actually working for his money this weekend.
It's good, isn't it?
Screen cleaner. So she's going to be doing some test and development driving. I think they've got up to 15 days available next year and should be sharing those duties. So that's a great opportunity anytime that you can say that you're a factory driver for Porsche, one of the great marks in international motorsport. That's a great achievement, so congratulations to her for that one. So Alex Davison showing the quickest time at the moment, sharing the car with his brother Will, car number 23, Milwaukee Racing. And they've got 5 1,000ths of a second over the car number 12, the Fabian Coulthard, Tony D'Alberto car. What are they up to at the back of car 888 here? Is that a ride height change?
Yes.
For Whincup and the screen cleaning Craig Lowndes?
David Couchy said to me that they had a really intense program for this session, and that's exactly what's happening. They're battling there with only 1:50 to get that car back out there and get a feel for that. He won't get a lap time because he won't get back to the checkered flag, but he'll be able to get a feel for it. And half-hour session around Bathurst goes so quickly, doesn't it?
I remember year in and year out thinking that how much time was available, with all these thought bubbles about the million things that you wanted to try when you get here, and then when you're actually in the sessions, they just disappear what feels like the snap of a finger. It just takes so long to process yourself into, through and out of the pits here, and then make changes, and then when you extract that time and look at the available time to do flying laps, add a little bit of traffic, which there is always traffic to deal with here.
Yep.
Sometimes you might be lucky to get a lap or two clear around here. Tim Slade's just moved up into 5th position, by the way. Car number 9 on screen, David Reynolds, but it's Luke Youlden actually at the helm at the moment. They're sitting in 7th place, a 5-5. That car was a handful in the wet conditions yesterday, and it was interesting when I spoke to all 4 of the Penrite Oils boys earlier in the weekend. They were lacking a lot of confidence when it came to knowing that they had a setup that worked for the wet, because they were fairly tortured here last year in those early practice runs before we got to the dry run on Sunday.
So, Alistair McVeigh, we had a truth serum session first thing this morning. He said, I messed up and so did David. So the car was too stiff, not good enough in the wet, and David didn't put his best lap together. The combination of that is 22nd.
But as you quite rightly observed earlier on, Mark, in conversation with Jess, sometimes here it just doesn't matter. 3 of the last 5 have been recovered from nowhere to turn into race victories. So they're doing a full rehearsal here in the pit lane. Luke getting out, David getting in. So in 2014, Mostert won the race after being excluded in qualifying and literally climbing from last. 2015, Lowndes and Richards qualified 15th and won the race. In 2016, Davison and Webb won the race from qualifying 17th. So it gives you a bit of an indication that as much as we love to get all carried away about the Hollywood numbers that are achieved in either qualifying or the top 10 shootout, it doesn't always play to form.
You'd have to think that looking at the times that the circuit is slower, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Weird wind direction, cold temperatures. I haven't done an update since the session started. But,
cold.
Yeah, it is cold. Yeah. Busted out a couple of... Oh, we've hit double digits. It's 10.1.
But it feels like...
5.6. Looking over the left shoulder of Tim Slade here, position number 6 for Freightliner Racing. Tim's showing really good form here. He loves this racetrack and has had some success here in the past. And a bit of speculation around what he might be doing in the future at the moment. He's off contract at the end of the year. He's gone up to 3rd position. So if you want to secure your place in a team or advertise your wares to anybody that might be looking towards engaging you in the future, the best thing you can do at Bathurst is do what he's doing at the moment. So that's right. He's up in 3rd spot. Checker flags actually come out. Bunnings Trade cable cam gives us a great view of the entry and exit into and out of the chase. And that second last corner, the right-hander, where they do the direction change from 2nd to 3rd gear, always gives us a great indication of car damage. We heard Scott McLaughlin talking last night on Pit Lane Live about the fact that when the car was all gripped up, he's trying to get through there flat. It's really hard to do without the back of the car braking sideways. Alex Premer is in car number 17, and car number 9 was the one that was just wheeled back into the lane. On screen there for the 2017 winners. So it gives you an idea of the side intrusion protection for David Reynolds there, just under his right elbow. There's a big sandwich panel, a honeycomb carbon panel that's on the outside of the roll cage structure that just protects the drivers from that side intrusion. You can see that when the door opened a moment ago. The wings around the seat, and you can see where the radio couples up together with the drink hose, etc. So at the top of the list at the end of a 30-minute session where all drivers were able to participate if they chose, it's Alex Davison, who is sharing with his brother Will. They're at the top on a 4.7. That Milwaukee car has been really strong in the back half of the championship season. Fabian Coulthard and Tony D'Alberto quick once again. Tim Slade and Ash Walsh, Percat, Premer, Tander, Moffat, Smith. So a lot of the co-drivers doing laps there towards the end. Then Youlden and Reynolds all the way down to Alexander Rossi and James Hinchcliffe. Still got some time to find, and unfortunately with a little bit of damage on the back of that car to now repair, but they'll turn that around pretty substantially and quickly. Andrew.
James Hinchcliffe, mate, you famously said this weekend that you're trying to tame this place. It's a bit like drinking from a fire hose. How's that going so far?
Yeah, well, the fire hose got turned up a little bit this morning, but that's all part of it. You know, I got into the wall a little bit in the cutting. Just trying to find the limit. You know, I'm actually getting a lot more comfortable in the car. Alex and I both. You know, every night you get to sleep on it, kind of let it sit, marinate overnight. you come back and you just feel a lot more at home in the car, a lot more comfortable. So just starting to push in places that we hadn't really felt comfortable pushing up to this point. Obviously, you just got away from me a little bit there and tagged the wall. Hate to lose the track time for both of us and for the team, but I think it's relatively cosmetic stuff at this point. We'll get it fixed up for this afternoon.
It looks like it, mate. For the purists like me, I know that you're a super talented guy, but for everybody at home in Australia, just talk through some of the complexities of how far away from your normal world this is.
Oh, it's how much time do we have? You know, with the Indy cars, obviously they're half the weight. They have 5,000 pounds of downforce, so more downforce than we have curb weight by a long shot. The dynamic of how you move the car, the weight transfer, totally different than a big, heavy, softly sprung, supercar. So learning how to extract that lap time out of the car has actually been the biggest challenge. And then you throw in trying to learn it on one of the hardest tracks in the world. It obviously makes it that much more complicated. But the team's been great getting us up to speed, and it's just laps at this point. So that's why this is kind of a bummer to lose a little bit of track time. But ultimately, I don't think the damage is too bad, and we'll get back out this afternoon and keep pounding around.
Thanks for chatting with us there. We'll just quickly have a look at that cosmetic damage that James was talking about. So the hit at the back here is not so bad, but up at the rear wing there, we've got a big crack through that end plate, and that's what caused this car to need to be parked. Last thing these guys needed was for that to fail coming down Conrod.
And they'll be able to turn that around pretty quickly. So frustration took a little bit of time away. But they'll get that thing repaired and back out there, running 3 cars this weekend at Walkinshaw Andretti United. Just some little glitches in the story for car number 6 for the Monster Energy Ford Mustang for both Michael Caruso and Cam Waters so far this weekend. Isn't that an awesome shot? Just goes to show how many people are in the paddock precinct. And then over there in the car park, you can see the hospitality and pit garage areas, and then the grandstands, etc. All the merch areas. In fact, the Supercheap shop, it's the busiest Supercheap outlet all weekend by far all around Australia, because they're queued up there, and the museum as well. There's plenty of things to see and do around here, Larko.
Yeah, down here with Ryan Story, the team principal down here at Shell V-Power Racing. But you've got a really hard gig today, haven't you? Because you've got to balance this massive expectation and pressure of what the outcome of a top 10 shootout might be. But right now you're practicing driver changes, runs. It's a tough balance, isn't it, mate?
Well, really, it's all about Sunday, but how we've seen some special performances here. I remember till the day they put me in a pine box, that lap that Scott did in 2017, but it's been a good weekend for us so far. In that session then we really focused on just giving Alex some track time, some valuable track time, which is really, really good for us. I think we need to get out of the way here, otherwise we're going to get run over. But on the other side of the garage with Fabs, we worked on just tuning the car up a little bit and making it a bit better, and did a practice driver change at the end there, put Tony in it just for that last run. But Alex did a great job there on those tyres. They weren't flash rubber, and he just got better and better with his fuel number and with his lap time across the run, which was really good. And we think we found some inroads with some of the changes we've made with the 12 car. So a really productive session overall for us. Nice little insight, Ryan, and we'll look at that tomorrow, because for all that speed, that little fuel number's really critical, isn't it, eh? It is. It's really important. We've been watching it from the moment we hit the track, and we've been getting better and better with it along the way. And look, you know what it's like. You always chase fuel in hand here, but if you can have a little bit of economy there as well, it's really important. And the Lambda rule change for this year as well is a big factor, and I can't wait to see what you do on the whiteboard with that one. We'll need to explain that. Thanks for the heads up, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks. Cheers.
Tim Slade, I suppose some people could put a question mark on yesterday's qualifying given the weather, but to come out here, be quick again this morning with dry weather, that must feel nice.
Yeah, it does. Although, I don't know, we ran green tyres then, and the lap time looks far from Hollywood, so yeah, it's sort of hard to know where we're at. The traits that we had with the car and the dry before are pretty similar to what we have now, so I don't think we're in fantastic shape, but I don't know. So we just got to keep on working, on him helping or improving our weaknesses, and then I guess that's all we can do, and then not really worried about the shootout. Obviously, it's awesome to be a part of, but then I just want something that's going to have a decent bit of speed, for tomorrow.
What's the plan for the rest of the day? Is the focus now for Ash just to go towards a race pace?
Yeah, well, since you tell me the next session is co-drivers only, which I wasn't aware of, so I guess, Ash will just continue to work on, the general balance. I think no matter what, the general balance, improving that's going to help one lap speed and sort of full stint race car speed as well. So, we'll just keep working away.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, Norris.
Mark Winterbottom, we'll start with you. We'll leave your co-driver for a second, mate. Great job to get into the shootout. Looked like a tough lead into quali yesterday for you guys.
Yeah, you're always trying to progress the car, and we ran out of time at the end with the red flag. We didn't get tyres on to have a crack, but then leading into qualifying, that's some of the toughest conditions you see out here, because some spots were wet, some spots weren't as wet, but it was like an ice rink. It was like that greasy, slippery, just crappy track condition that's hard work, and we went with a dry setup, which there's not massive amounts you can do, but we went with a dry setup thinking it may dry, and then tightened the belts a bit for the last couple of laps, snuck in the shootout, and now we use these 2 practice sessions to try and get the car good for the dry again. But yeah, cool to be in the shootout, and we survived, which was good.
Great job to be in the shootout, and that's why you paid the big bucks, mate, is to tighten those belts. Hey, Richo, how good is it to come back here, drive with your buddy Frosty after a win last year with Lounsey? Feeling comfortable in this car?
Yeah, look, that then was probably the best session I've had in the car all weekend, and just in terms of everything working right, and we're actually now doing what I need to do, and that's get into race mode. So we're really good. Frosty's great. There's a lot of very familiar faces in the garage, some new ones, all enthusiastic and pumped up, and ready for a big day tomorrow.
Thanks, Richo.
No worries. Thanks.
And something that we've just picked up on, that was a change to the further regulations just recently in this past week. This next session is actually going to be open now to all drivers, not just the co-drivers. So that'll be the next supercar session coming up. It'll be over another 30-minute journey. And after his